Hello and welcome everyone. I am Alan Wasega and this is Business Highlights. This show is an exploration of African businesses and organizations with a focus on their histories and playbooks. Today's show shines the spotlight on AltSchool Africa from the point of view of its senior community manager, Tabitha Kavyu. Founded in 2021, AltSchool Africa is an edtech platform that seeks to train students in the areas of business, data, software engineering, media, and the creative economy. My conversation with Tabitha explores the company's story and her journey into community management. Please enjoy my conversation with Tabitha. I wanted to start maybe at the very high level, kind of a lay of the land, if you like, of where the higher education sector in Africa is today, especially because I know you operate in the tech sector. So, in your view, what is interesting about this space? And what are some of the shifts that we should be aware of, especially when looked at the point of view of traditional universities? Because I think you want to shift things a bit in the traditional universities kind of sense. So, how might that look like for you?
Okay. So in terms of the shift, what I will say is that we are seeing an increase, in the demand for skills, and I know by now most people are actually aware that traditional institutions or rather traditional universities are struggling to keep up with that. And this is something we are all quite familiar with, the whole story of many people go to the university or you go to college, right? You study for 4 years or 5 years, and then you graduate, and we go out there, and then there's unemployment. Why is there unemployment, right? Because out there in the marketplace, employers are expecting people that have a particular type of skills, but you find that there's a gap, right, in what was offered in the university. Maybe it was more of theory, a theoretical approach, and not the practical bit. So you see and find people now, you have to you graduate after 4 years or 5 years, and you still find yourself having to go ahead and learn a new skill, so that you can match up with what an employer is looking out for, right? And this is why this has opened up the doors for many edtech platforms, boot camps or even programs that, just focused on training people on in-demand skills so that the youth are equipped. And I mean, as Africa, we have like the largest population of young people, and there's an
Yeah.
increase in the skills, right? So that's why I think every new day you'll see people coming up with a new program, or let's for 1 year come and learn software engineering, or 6 months or 3 months come and learn this particular skill, just to match up with that, because there's a gap, and we know it. There's a gap between what we learn in the university, what we are taught, and what is expected of you out there. So I think that's one of the shifts that we'll expect to see, people just becoming more aware of this. And I think we're also seeing some people maybe opting out of, the traditional way of learning and just focusing on, oh, this is the skill I'm needed to have. Let me just focus on it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to go the route of, oh, which is better. I haven't gone to university, so I'm not going to tell anyone. But I know that once the reality is, the moment you're trying to look for a job, people need to learn that. I think maybe sometimes people know, but I think some people are not aware of this, that you need to know that there are some skills you need to equip yourself earlier enough, just in preparation for what to expect in the digital economy. And I feel like the earlier some people, especially the young people, the earlier they know, it's easy to even do your traditional education, like your university program, while also doing a program along the side, so that by the time you're graduating, you're not only graduating with a degree, but you also have a particular skill that that an employer is looking out for. So
When you mentioned that, so can we complement higher education? Like, can we make them better in a way that students who still pursue like the traditional computer science, let me say, education, can
yeah.
still go to, let me call JQuat where I was, can still go to JQuat and still graduate feeling prepared in a way? Or is it just a lost cause? Like, don't go to JQuat, do your boot camp? Or is there a
Mm.
way that we can merge the two in a way that, I guess what I'm asking is, can schools be better or is it a lost cause for them?
So, I mean, in regards to like the schools or maybe the universities, I don't know. I feel like there's an opportunity to be better, right? But in terms of maybe complementing, I think we have programs like I remember like Kamilimu, right? I was still
Yeah.
in the university, right? And I knew that there are some things they tell us. I think I was one of the we are privileged enough to know earlier that you're not going to learn everything at the university, right? And there's some things you need to like, CV preparation, essay writing, and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that is why I think we'll keep on seeing an increase in all these programs or edtech platforms. It's just focused on complementing what people learned in the university. So from the traditional aspect, I don't know if changes. I don't know if it's possible, but I think it just goes back to the shift to expect. We'll keep on seeing more and more uh, programs just focused on let's help you complement the skills that you learned. Yes, you know this, but if you add Y to this, then you're better off when looking out for a job.
Okay. And that brings me nicely to AltSchool Africa. And I've seen your website, but I think it will be better to hear it from, let me call it the horse's mouth. So, what its founding story is. And I think you've hinted to what the problem is, but maybe just solidly tie it down to, so what's the founding story of Our School Africa? And what problem are you trying to solve? And how is
Yeah.
it trying to change this equation, this imbalance in what the education sector is providing versus what employers want? So, those three things.
All right. So the story is still around talent, right? And there have been conversations around there's a lot of demand, for talent, employers looking out for software engineers, XYZ, right? And the reality is that it's hard to actually find this talent because the supply is low, or maybe you find that there are people that qualify for some of these jobs are not as many as you'd have hoped for, right? And this goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, right? The fact that yes, we have people, let's say graduates, but they don't have the required skills, like what an employer is looking out for. You get so
Mhm.
so we just thought about it because we're in the talent space and we're just thinking, how do we bridge that gap? How do we help solve that problem? How do we make sure that there's an increase in supply of talent, right? And
Yeah.
when we looked at the problem where we see many people graduate from the university every year and people go out there and they really can't get jobs for themselves because we know that there are certain skills that employers are looking for or the marketplace demands that you have for you to be able to work as a person. So that's where it all started. We're like, so how do we help out? The first step is to teach people, train people, right? So
Yeah.
for example, things like software engineering, sometimes you don't necessarily need. I don't want to start the conversation of people talk about having a computer science degree and a self-taught, but the reality is, if you can learn it on your own. Once you have the skill, you're good to go, right? So there's that. I mean, there's a part where it's good to have the foundational knowledge from a traditional institution, but the reality is there are skills that maybe you don't even have to spend many years learning, right? You can just take,
Mhm.
if you dedicate 3 months or 6 months or 1 year to learn a particular skill, and before you know it, you start practicing, maybe start applying for internships, and you find yourself job ready, right? So that's what we were just trying to solve. Let's train people in demand skill, any skill that's out there that we know employers are looking out for. And because with tech, new things keep on coming up, right? So I know when we started with software engineering, right? Because like I said, I believe that if you dedicate some time and with 1 year, it's possible for you to just get the foundation of software engineering, and before you know it, you're good to go. All right. So that's the story
Yeah.
of All School. We just want to equip people with skills to make them job ready. And at the end of the day, we also want to make sure that they are valuable people in the society, because if you get a job, you're able to support your family or your community in one or another, right? So
Yeah.
we just want to be able to support talent with the skills they need, so that once you have the skills, we know that getting a job won't be that difficult. It may be difficult, but you have an edge. it's not a case of you don't have the skills. You already have the skills. The major problem now is to get the job. So yeah.
Mhm. Okay. And could you just walk us through the different programs that you offer? I know you've mentioned software engineering, but I believe you offer way more than just software engineering.
Yeah.
And how are these programs delivered? Are they in classroom? Are they virtually? And do you have tutors? At the same time, also curious just about what's the category of students that you target? Are
Yeah.
they students who are still in school, out of school, or is it anyone who with that interest in whatever you offer?
Okay. So yeah, so when we started with the School of Engineering, Software Engineering. So in software engineering, if you want to learn front end, back end, or cloud, that's what we offer in the School of Engineering. Then we also launched a School of Products. So in the School of Products, we train on product marketing, product management, and product design. Then we also have, so we just categorized all these things under specific schools, right? So in
Mhm.
data, we have a School of Data where we have data science, data engineering, and data analysis, right? So that's our diploma programs, and this is our 1 year long program, and it's virtual, right? Because again, we are solving this for Africa, not a specific group of people. Yeah. So
Okay.
Africans, and so for us to do this, and I think COVID just made everyone aware that you can do anything online, right? And I think with a virtual program, it enables us to reach people from other countries as well, right? And you're able to participate in the program from the comfort of your home, right? You don't have to think about having to go to a physical space and things like that. So yeah, it's a virtual program, 12 months. That's the diploma program. And yeah, we also launched cybersecurity recently, right? So that's we'll
Oh.
go to the School of Engineering, right?
Mhm.
Like I mentioned before, we focus on in-demand skills. So when we just did a survey and we asked people what skill would you want to learn, and cybersecurity just keep coming up, and we're like, okay, people want to learn cybersecurity, and so we said, let's go ahead with it. And then we also have short courses. Shorter courses means they're not 12 months, maybe like 6 weeks at most. Maybe I just want to learn content creation. Not everyone wants to learn software engineering or all the tech
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or even I
Yeah.
want to be a content creator within the software development realm.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
now we have short courses with book I use to upskill. So maybe you want to learn content creation, or you want to learn sales, right? Maybe you're getting into the sales space, and maybe you don't really have the required skills. You can quickly take our sales course, and you're good to go. So this is just a we call them short courses because they're short. So that's what we currently offer. And you asked about the structure. So anyone is welcome to our program. I mean, you don't have I know people are worried sometimes. For example, in software engineering, people feel like, oh, maybe I need to have a background in tech. But what we sell out there is that you don't have to have a background in tech. You come and we teach you from zero to a level where you have an understanding of that particular skill. Right. So our programs are open to people that are either beginners in tech, they just want to start their careers in tech, or
Mhm.
you were in another field, right? Maybe you're in law or medicine, and you just want to make that transition into tech. Or maybe let's say, for example, I'm someone in the is it fintech? Like, I mean, I'm a banker, right? And maybe as a
Yeah.
banker, I feel like a data analyst, if I have data analysis skills, this will give me an edge over others and make me more employable, right? So people that are looking to transition, people that are looking to start their careers in tech, and maybe if you just want to upskill, you have the skill, but you just are looking for a structured program somewhere where you can learn with other people and have accountability. Because I know there's we have online platforms where, and we find ourselves in situations where we pay for courses and we don't finish them. Yeah, we leave courses. I mean, I'm also guilty of this. I still have some pending courses somewhere, right?
I totally know. Like we signed up for whichever platform, and especially during COVID, then there was this
Yes,
rush of just sign up for whatever you can get.
yes.
And somewhere along the line, I don't know whether it's the enthusiasm just fell off. Yeah.
I think sometimes it becomes harder to keep up, especially if you don't have the discipline. I'm sure there are people that have hacked it, but if you don't have the discipline or like, oh, okay, I need to take this today, right? So, and then you get busy with your daily activities, and sometimes it is easy to forget that. So, and again, because we are solving this for Africans and we know how things are, we are aware of the reality and the type of people we are, and so that's why um we do things differently at AltSchool Africa. So you just don't have access to your courses, but there's a structure to it. That means you might have assignments to submit, you might have projects to do, there's exams to do, something to make sure that you are on track, achieving different milestones along the way. And then there's also the support of the community, right? You're not learning alone. So sometimes maybe it gets hard for me to maybe continue my an online course I bought because maybe I'm the only person doing it. I don't have someone that's also doing it, and maybe it's just being an accountability partner or just checking in with me, or maybe I have a problem, I didn't understand something quite clearly. But you see, when you have a community of people learning the same thing as you, it is easy to just learn together, support each other. So that's what we are actually doing with All School Africa, providing that structure and also a community of learners like you who can help you along the journey. Because again, online learning is not easy, but we have seen that it's possible because we've had people graduating. So it's actually very possible if you commit. And again, community is always a big factor, right? Being able
Mhm.
to have people to support you in the journey, it becomes easier. So that's how we're doing the things differently at Alt School.
And what's your typical academic calendar like? Let me focus a bit more on the 1 year program, the diploma. And does it run from January to whichever time, or is it open for admission anytime? And what's the admission criteria? Is there an application process? So how do I get in? When do I get in? And at the same time, I think I've seen you on Twitter once in a while, which was a really commendable thing. I don't when you are looking for organization that can sponsor certain students. So what's like the fee criteria like for someone? So how do I get in? When do I get in? And how do I fund my studies?
Okay. So in terms of the fees, right, and getting in, so the program is 1 year, right? That means we have broken it into 3 semesters. First semester, just like in the university, first
Mhm.
semester, second semester, and third semester, all right? And so that means you have to learn particular things. So maybe first semester is focused on the foundations, and then as you proceed to second semester, you're getting more deeper into the concepts, and then by third semester, you are able to do a project on your own, right? And the fee is $30 a month. So we have three payment plans. So there's an annual payment plan, there's a quarterly payment plan, and then there's a monthly payment plan. So the monthly one is $30. The quarterly one is $80, and then the annual one is $290. But then before you actually get enrolled to the school, there's a $20 application fee. All right.
Mhm.
I mean, sometimes people need to also like show some commitment to a program, and we just don't take everyone in. So we take people through an assessment phase where you are tested on some skills. We provide the learning materials for that, but it's just something to make sure that the people that are getting into the program are people that are committed and are ready to actually learn, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
we have that assessment phase. So you have to apply, go through the assessment phase, and once you pass, you get admission to the school, and then you start your learning journey. And I think what I would say about, I mean, in my own opinion, right? I feel like, not like feel like, and I'm not, I'm going to say this as an alt school staff, but also from my own POV, the program is affordable, right? Because I know another problem that we see most of us Africans facing is sometimes you want to learn or you want to apply to a boot camp or a training institution, and the fees you can't afford them. Say you're a student,
Yeah.
you know how we
Yeah.
talked about, if I know that there's a gap and I know that I need to learn, so maybe I want to make sure that before I graduate I have this particular skill so that I can start looking for a job, but then I may not have enough money to actually pay for some of these programs. So that's another problem. So because we want to um, make sure that we are helping talents out there. We also knew, and we started and we're like, we know that affordability is something to put into consideration, and I believe
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing that makes us different from other um, training institution. The fact that we carefully thought about it, and we're like, we know. I mean, we're not a non-profit; we are for profit, of course. But then, how do we make sure that our program is accessible to many people out there, right? So we said we just have to make sure that our fees are affordable, something that you can pay. That's why we even have the different payment plans. So maybe if you don't have enough money to pay for the whole year, you can start paying month on month, or if you can pay for 3 months, that's the quarterly payment. So you're
Yeah.
good to go. Make sure we try to be very inclusive and make sure that many people have access to this. And when I think about it, because I remember when I was in school, I really wanted to go to apply for a particular program because I knew I was already aware that I may not learn everything in the university, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I didn't have the money. I really wanted to, but I didn't have the money. I mean, it was very expensive. And I'm like, yeah. I know my parents do not even allow me. They will tell me to finish my university education, and maybe once you have your own money, you can pay for yourself. You get so. I think affordability is a major thing.
I do get where you say accessibility of education. And I think that's what really attracted me to this was, yeah, we all want to some degree. I think right now being tech savvy is something that no one can ignore. And everything is moving into the tech world. Basically, every company at this point is a tech company. And so
Yeah.
if we can have that kind of education, not really, let me say, democratized, but aff- affordable to everyone or accessible to everyone, then that
Mm.
would be a really great plus, especially now looking into the entirety of Africa's population. So I'm really glad that you're working in this space, and which now brings me really nicely again to a focus about yourself now, because when I met you, you were at Kamilimu and you were at University of Nairobi doing
Yes.
computer science, and right
Yes.
now you're the senior community manager at AltSchool Africa, and that in my head traditionally does not align. So how do you move from computer science into community management? And I'm just curious if you could take us as far back as you want and maybe just give us the background of how you came into this problem space and where your motivations came from.
Right. I mean, starting from Kamilimu, I remember I was introduced to Kamilimu by a friend that was also in the University of Nairobi, Marcy. And so, I mean, she explained what Kamilimu is all about, right? And I'm like, this is what we need. And this just takes me back to what I said before. I think sometimes it's better when you know earlier that you need to make sure that you have certain skills in check even before you graduate, so that you're may not be 100% ready, but maybe 80%, right? So I
Yeah.
remember I joined Kamilimu, and I mean, there's a lot to learn, and I really confirmed that these are things that I never was taught in my 4 years, right? Um, Things like maybe CV writing, even access to mentors. 'Cause I remember we had access to mentors, professional development, essay writing. I know sometimes as tech people, there are many programs that we apply to, and sometimes just explaining yourself is not easy, right? And I'm really glad that Kamilimu just comes in to help people know how to navigate that, right? So in my period at Kamilimu, right? I mean, I was doing computer science, yes, in the University of Nairobi, and then at the same time, I was also a developer students club lead, which is now called Google Developer Students Club lead. So I was already doing community in a way. I was supporting people, and I think when I was in Camille, I know one of the pillars was focus on like community and volunteering and things like that.
Yeah.
And I know because of my DSC, because I mean the Google Developer Students Club was already a volunteer opportunity. I'm leading a community, right? So I know I was really active in that. I mean, that's one of the pillars of Chameleon that I know that I really maxed out. So anytime there was an event at Chameleon and maybe Dr. Cha would ask for volunteers, I know I want to be part of that. So I just found myself being active already in the tech space. I mean, I didn't know what was going on, but I'm like, I mean, there's an opportunity here, and I feel like I can do it. So let's go ahead. So I kind of got used to it. Even when I was done with Camille, I found myself even volunteering to to communities, and with access to people, the moment you go out there in events, you meet different people and you learn a lot of things. But that's why people say, if you are not into networking, you don't realize how much you're missing out, right? So that's being able to connect with different people and learning from them. I was able to even, and with the GDSE program, I kind of got to know that, oh, okay, there's something called community management. Like, it's not just a thing where you just help out. Yeah, it's a career. It's an emerging skill, one of those in-demand skills, right? I think it's in demand now. People are getting to know the value of community. Before it wasn't a thing, but now it's something that's coming up and people are really getting on board with the idea, right? So, but when I was starting out, I was just like, I'm just doing this thing because I'm doing it. And I mean, Camille also
It
opened
makes
up
me
the
happy,
yes,
and it makes you happy. Sorry.
yeah, yes, yes. There's that. So I just kept on doing it. And then I think I knew that by the time I graduate, of course, I'm going to get into software engineering job internship at first. But the internship I got wasn't even a software engineering internship. It was a people internship that was in talent QL in the recruiting space. And one thing I learned is that there's no one way to do things, right? So I said, let me do it. I mean, it's not coding, but is it something that, again, I looked at it from a perspective of, oh, you are helping people have a better future, right? Connecting people to jobs, right? I was in the recruiting space. I have never been a recruiter. I never even would have imagined that I would be a recruiter, right? And I know at the back of my mind, I said I'll be a devil, right? Again, like I said, having access to different people, seeing people doing different things, your mind kind of opens up and you know that, oh, there's so many opportunities out there for you, right? You just need to make sure that you're prepared enough for them. So I knew that my end goal will ever be in devil, but for the better part of my starting years, I'll just do maybe software engineering. But then in my
Yeah.
internship, I got talent skill. I'm doing recruiting. I'm helping people. And again, one thing I've always known about myself is when I always believe that I can do anything, and I feel like all of us can do everything. We don't have to subject your mind to thinking that, oh, you can only do one particular thing. There's so many things you can do. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can agree with that, Alan. So you might have
No, I
those
totally
thinking that,
agree
oh,
with
I
you.
I can only be a software engineer, but you realize that you can even be, like you said, you can be a software engineer, you can be a content creator as well. You get and you teach people what you're learning, right? Or how you're able to do stuff in software engineering. So when I got into that space, because it's an internship, I needed it to graduate, right? So I had to do it. And I kind of got used to it. I liked it. I didn't know what the future held for me, but I was just like, let's keep going, right? I'll keep showing up. And then the old school idea now came in. Because in the same space of, like I told you, it was in the talent space, and then we figured there's a gap here, right? And how do we bridge this gap? Let's train people. And that's how AltSchool Africa came to be. And then they were looking for a community manager. And one of the founders or the co-founders already knew me, again, from the internet, and again, because I was active in communities. And I mean, even when I was in Camille, when we would volunteer, we would tweet about some of these things, right? So I'd already established per se in the tech space. I know there was no
Yeah.
event, and me. I was always, so I was not kind of new to the community space. I knew about it. And so when they were looking for a community manager, I mean, it just was easy for them. They just reached out to me and they said, would you be interested in this? Would you want to transition from recruiting to community? And I said, I mean, this is something I would love doing, right? I like helping people. I like supporting people. And then this is now education. And then, so the consolation of the comfort I had was that I may not be doing software engineering now, but I'm going to help people that want to get into software engineering.
I'd love for you to give us a lesson in the world of community management, especially in the context of an education institution such as AltSchool Africa. So, what exactly is community management, and what makes a successful community manager? And at the same time, what are some of the challenges that you have faced in this role?
Hmm. So I think the simplest way to describe community management, right? Or who a community manager is, it's like the bridge between um, a company or organization and the users, right? So the middle person, right? So let's say a particular company is offering a particular product, right, that involves, working with users, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, more companies now are leaning into the community aspect of things because they realize that they need to create relationships with their users, right? For them to even get feedback from these users and continue innovating and make their products more usable and more um, effective, because at the end of the day, if you're not building with your users, what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty much, so we now see companies, just bringing in community managers. So that bridge, the mid person between a brand, an organization, and its users, right? And in the context of, say, AltSchool Africa now, so the company here is AltSchool Africa, yeah. The users
Yeah.
here are the learners that come to learn, right? And now for us, like we said, like I mentioned before, community is one of our major pillars, right? That's what we are trying to, build a community of learners that are able to learn together and support each other. And people don't just come together on your own. Sometimes there has to be something that's, and something or someone that's encouraging them to come together and even start building, you know. I, I,
Mm.
I read somewhere that sometimes people know something, but they're just waiting to be led. They're just waiting for someone else to say, "Oh, let's do X, Y, Z," right? So, of course, for us, automatically, because we have our learners, and we need to continue having a relationship with our learners to know how to even better support them and even give them a better learning experience. So that's where, community now management comes in. Someone that has to manage these people, someone that has to listen to them, get feedback from them, or even pass on. So basically, like the face of the organization, right? Or
Yeah.
the middleman, right? So if there's any information or communication that needs to be made to the users, of course, that's where the community manager comes in this case, me, right? So in the context of All School Africa. Yeah. And so that's pretty much the same. So it's different for different organizations, but then for us, because we need to we need to have our users closer to us, because like it's a 1 year program, right? So there's a need to keep on engaging these people for 1 year so that they stay on course and, just not drop out, because if you don't lead the people, they'll drop out. Yeah. So that's like I said, so it's different. So for some organizations, I see maybe community is just a support for them. So maybe they just create it's a particular product and they just create a support community where if you have any questions about about this product, people get to ask the questions. And sometimes, so instead of investing in maybe a customer support person, when they build that community, you find somebody that has already used the product. It's easier for them to guide a new user and tell them, oh, this is how you go about it, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
also helps them to have more the loyal users, helping new users, so taking care of support for the company, and then also giving this companies an opportunity to maybe test out some features with new users. You get, so that's how the concept of community comes in when you are uh, working with users. The need to build relationship with your users to continue creating better experiences for them.
Okay. And any particular challenge that really stands out for you?
Oh, okay. So for me, like as a community manager in old school, right?
Yeah.
I think the major challenge that even most community managers face, of course, it has to be managing people is never easy. It's never easy. So that's the biggest challenge. Managing people is never, because now managing community means a lot of things, right? You have to look at engaging your users, finding out what works for them, engaging them, so that, because if you don't have an engaged community, the community will die. And if the communities will die, then you're not able to achieve what you want to achieve at the end of the day with your community. Maybe you're not able to support them better. You're not you're not able to have that sense of loyalty from your users as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and that's hacking engagement. And I think before, maybe when I was starting out, I really was stressing a lot. Okay, how do I make sure? How do I make sure? I know to have some context on how to get this done, but then you need to realize that there's no one way to do things, right? It's an experimental thing. So before when I was starting out, I didn't think I thought that, oh, if I do this, I want everyone to be on board, right?
Yeah,
Get
yeah,
on
yeah.
board with it's a cool idea, just get on board. But then you realize the reality is that what made it look fun to you or interesting or big, the users don't care about it. And maybe they just want something else. So you just have to come to terms and get on the same page with them. What really works for them? What do they want to see? What does value look like for them, right? And then that way you're able to build with them. You're able to involve them in the decisions you're making. But then if you just think in your head that, oh, I'm a good community manager, I have good engagement initiatives, I have a strategy for it, and if I do this, my community is going to be engaged. You'll be surprised.
Uh, you remind me of a podcast I was listening to of Seth Godin, and he was saying something around failing on your way to mastery. So
Yeah.
product number one or your communication or engagement number one will suck, guarantee you. But then
So
does that stop you? And you just have to keep on. You will fail a lot, but at the end of the day, you'll become the master.
yeah,
But you'll fail a lot.
yeah.
And I'm curious about what you're listening to or watching or reading right now.
All right now, or what I've read before. Ah, okay. Listening. There's a podcast I was listening to. It's about growing community for startups. I finished that. I was reading a book, Business of Belonging. Again, just understanding the relationship between companies and users and how community comes in, how communities provide value for business. Like I mentioned, I think as days goes by, business now realize that, oh, like we really need to invest in community because it will help us achieve X, Y, Z. So just understanding, because I know sometimes even people that, let's say for example, back in the campus days, maybe you were just doing it, you didn't realize that this is actually providing value to that business, right? So just understanding the place of community in a business. And I finished that. I finished that. So I'm just I'm reading a book now. I've not made much progress. What's the name of the book? Something manager. How to make the making of a manager. The making of a manager. Yes.
Okay.
I know you may be
Um,
curious why, but yeah, because that book
yeah,
made
what's of all the books that you could have picked, why that one?
um, I think this is just for my own personal development, not just about community management, aside from managing external people, just knowing how to manage people internally, maybe preparing myself for future roles, because
Yay.
I think as I keep on evolving, of course, I'll find myself having to work with a team. So how do I become a better manager?
Okay. Um, so I want to bring us to the closing with come back to AltSchool Africa.
Okay.
And I believe alternative education pathways are not new, especially in the tech space. Like off the top of my head, I can think of, for instance, Moringa School and these multiple the MOCs such as Coursera and even Free Code Camp. So I think a natural question for me would be I'm looking for to upskill myself. Why AltSchool Africa? I guess what I want you to do is could you pitch to me why I should enroll at AltSchool Africa for whatever program, assuming now I'm interested in, say, cybersecurity or whichever. It could be open.
Okay. I already did this before. If you notice, I already did this, but I'll do it again. Okay. So one thing I mentioned is the affordability aspect. Yeah. Um, you can trust that when you get in the program, it's not something that you have to think much about your financial status, because again, like I mentioned, there are different payment plans to put into consideration, right? Because I think when we started, what we had in mind is that we don't want people to focus more on looking for the money bit, you know. We want you to get the education. We want you to get the skills, right? And so affordability is one of them. And like we also mentioned with MOCs, um, there's a huge problem of not finishing up with what you started, right? And because there isn't the accountability, you're just learning on your own. So you might get busy and you can't before you know it, you have like two pending courses that are finished.
Yeah.
But then now that's where AltSchool Africa community now comes in, right? So have we figured that this is a problem, and for us to hack this online thing, we need to um, really build a community around our learners so that at the end of the day they give each other the support and they learn from each other. Sometimes you don't just have to learn from the material that provided to you, but people alone, that's the exchanging of knowledge. And we have people that, you know, like I told you, online learning is not easy, right? So there's the concept of study groups, right? So you are sure that when you get to AltSchool Africa, aside from having access to the larger community of people in your school, but you also have access to a smaller group of people that can be your accountability partners. You know, I know there are people that are always afraid of maybe talking on those Slack communities. You know, you don't want to seem like you talk a lot, but then you know you find yourself paired with other people that you can work with. And there's also the diversity aspect, right? Like I mentioned before, we have people from different parts of the world, so there's an opportunity for you to learn from different POVs. Maybe a problem in Nigeria is viewed differently here in Kenya, right? So when you're working
Yeah.
on solutions or when you're working on projects, it just helps to give different perspectives, you know, and helps with innovation in terms of how they come up with solutions. So community, and there's the structure as well. So you have to keep up whether you like it or not, right? So there's the structure, and we we take time to actually make our content. We actually take time to create our content, you know. Yes, we're solving for Africans, but not just only Africans, but we also want to bring the whole aspect of familiarity. You know, imagine learning from someone you know, you've seen, you can relate with, right? So that's that's how we approach our own content productions. We create our own content, and then you get to learn on it at your own time. It's flexible. I know people are always like, oh, can I? I'm working. Can I really do this? We've seen people are doing their masters or PhDs or people with I've seen mothers, you know, telling me that oh, I'm taking care of my kid, but as I'm taking care of my kid, I'm listening to my class because we have online class. I'm watching my classes, right? So it's the program is flexible. I would say that as long as you're committed enough and you know how to manage your time, you'll find that it's easy for you to stay on course. And then the other projects to work on. So it's not just going to be a lot of theory work. So you're going to have assignments that you have to work on yourself. Some assignments you'll work on with groups, and then there's a major project that you do on your own to make sure that you re-evaluate your overall skills. What have you learned, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen many of our graduates, I mean just getting jobs on their own, right? Because like I said, the focus is making sure people are job ready, equipping them with the skills they need. And we've seen them just going extra miles, um, already looking for jobs even before they finish the program. And some of them are doing internships, some of them are already um, doing full-time, already absorbed full-time into this company. So and I guess that's the ultimate, success, just being able to go through a program and seeing that you can actually get a job. And so this already gives us the motivation to keep on going because we know that we are actually um, working in line with our mission, right? That it's actually possible to train people and make sure that they are ready for jobs, and not just making sure that they're ready for jobs, but actually seeing them get those jobs. So, yeah.
Yeah. I like that. And so could you just tell us the big chunky pieces of what the future looks like for All School Africa?
The overall goal, I mean, is just we just want to help create better talent out there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where we just focus on many things. I mean, of course, there's the scaling aspect, and like I mentioned, we are dealing with in-demand skills, so we'll keep on seeing more courses, being added to the program, a lot of learning, a lot of I also mentioned short courses, right? So nothing is we're not this is not the end. So we'll keep on launching more products, more courses for people to take up, and even helping supporting people in their careers, right? Because the vision is just to help create better talent. So we just want to focus on helping people get the skills and then helping them grow their careers.
I like that, and I wish you all the very best. And thank you so much for taking part in this. It's been an honor just being in your orbit. I know you've been doing a lot, and it's an honor just being sharing the same space with you for today. And thank you so much, Tabitha. I really root for you and everything that you do.
Thank you, Alan.